Good morning. Everybody's hearing me?
Yes. Good morning, Chair.
Yes. I'd like to welcome the stakeholders, officials, the members, first of all, and the stakeholder officials who have graciously consented to come and sit with us this morning to answer the question that we wish to ask. I wish to welcome the viewing and listening audience to the second virtual hearing of the Joint Select Committee on Finance and Legal Affairs. This is our second hearing, as I said before, with stakeholders pursuant to the inquiry into the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago. So we had the first hearing just about a month ago on January 15, 2021, with the Ministry of Trade and Industry, the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs, and Ministry of Public Administration and Digital Transformation. And today we have three different entities: Ministry of Finance, inclusive of the Custom and Excise Division. We have officials of the Ministry of Planning and Development, and we have officials of the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. So today, this inquiry that we're embarking on, the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago. So pre-COVID-19, there were a number of small, medium, and large businesses in our country. And if you walk through the malls or you walk through Port of Spain or anywhere in the country, you see that COVID-19 has destroyed many of them. We hope temporarily, and that they would rise again. We hope to see a resurgence of business activity. But our economic survival depends on that taking place, you know. And this will only happen if there's ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago. If businesses are to rise phoenix-like from the ashes of the pandemic, Trinidad and Tobago must become a place where local and foreign entrepreneurs can say of us that bureaucracy is at a minimum here. Startup processes are efficient, swift, and reasonably priced. And all in all, that we are a business-friendly environment. And the fact that the World Bank has ranked us number 105 out of 190 countries must be a dreadful mistake. Because we know really we're number one of business-friendly countries. Now, the motto of my high school was Veritas. So you would want me to live up to that virtue. So over this session, the next, we will examine how to make that true. Let me remind you of the inquiry objectives. 1, to identify reform measures aimed at improving the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago. 2, to identify reform measures aimed at improving the ease of doing business and to identify the challenges which state agencies may encounter in implementing reform measures, and identify the challenges and how are we going to fix them. Now, this is a virtual meeting, and we have certain guidelines. 1, ensure that you mute your microphone when you are not speaking to help keep background noise to a minimum. We've done some checks, so we adjust your camera so that your face is clearly visible. I seem to be seeing everybody. This is Scotland again. Secretary Clarence Rambarak, Mr. Minister. We want to see all of you. Ensure that notifications from your cell phone or any other electronic device in your vicinity are muted during the course of the meeting. We're inviting members of the listening and viewing audience to post or send their comments via the Parliament's various social media platforms, Facebook page, ParlView, the Parliament's YouTube channel, and Twitter during the course of the inquiry. So I welcome you all to this meeting and invite now the officials to introduce themselves, starting with the Ministry of Finance, inclusive of the Custom and Excise Division. Briefly, Ms. Yvonne Nimataran, you will start.
Good morning. I am Yvonne Nimataran, Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance.
Good morning, everyone. I am Karen Sigaran-Londat, Supervisor of Insolvency, Office of the Supervisor of Insolvency. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Anna Maria Burkett, Revenue Planning Officer, Inland Revenue Division.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Heath Manzano, Economic Advisor, Ministry of Finance.
We have Ms. Marcel, and you're muted, Ms. Marcel. We're not hearing you, Ms. Marcel. At this point.
Can you hear me? Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Vidya Marcial, Acting Comptroller of Customs and Excise Division.
Is Karen Sibran? Sorry? Oh. So do we have the whole team? Yes. All right. We move to official Ministry of Planning and Development now.
Hello, good morning. My name is Rick Javed Ali. I'm the Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Planning and Development.
Welcome. Next. I think you're muted, Mr. Parrier.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kerry Parriag, Acting Director of the Town and Country Plan Division.
So can I mute me now? So it have mute me here.
Ms. Ratan Singh.
Good morning, everyone. Janine Ratan Singh, Acting Research Officer 2 at the Town and Country Planning Division.
Officials of the Port Authority.
Morning, everyone. Trudy Gill Conlon, Acting General Manager, the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago.
Morning, everyone. I'm Robert Ramsberg, Acting CEO, Porter Spain.
So again, thank you all for coming. We're now going to invite opening statements, maximum of 2 minutes. Of course, it can be shorter, from Ms. Yvonne Nimar-Turan, then Mr. Rick Ali, and then Mrs. Trudy Gill Conlon.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee, my colleagues at the Ministry of Finance, and all others sitting in this meeting this morning. Madam Chair, the Ministry of Finance is very cognizant of the importance of the ease of doing business to the macroeconomic landscape of the country, and is therefore very committed and much more focused in dedicating adequate resources in order to fulfill its obligation in this area. A number of initiatives have been instituted by various divisions in the Ministry of Finance. The Board of Inland Revenue has undertaken measures to bring much needed relief to the taxpaying public, including but not limited to the implementation of the Automated Clearinghouse ACH system to facilitate wire transfer and implementation of a comprehensive roadmap to achieve full uptake of e-filing and e-payment by 2022. With regards to our Custom and Excise Division, we have introduced non-intrusive equipment, scanners, and upgraded the electronic system. Also, in keeping with government's drive towards a digital economy, there are plans to introduce an online payment system for the payment of taxes, having already configured the custom border control system to receive online payments. The Ministry of Finance has also identified and instituted ongoing training of audit managers and effective management of audit processes at the Inland Revenue Division. The Custom and Excise Division has identified priority areas of business process re-engineering, which is receiving the full support of the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance has also done tremendous work in the area of insolvency. The Office of the Supervisor of Insolvency was established and became operational in July 2017, and work is ongoing in strengthening the appropriate legislation in this area. The Ministry of Finance has made a concerted effort to address issues outlined in your correspondence, and we hope that the information submitted assisted the committee in its deliberation. The team present here this morning is also willing to assist the committee with its further deliberation, and it is hoped that the contribution of the Ministry of Finance will contribute to the improvement of our ranking in the ease of doing business index in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Rikali?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to your committee members and to all of my colleagues present. It gives me great pleasure to be present here today on behalf of the Ministry of Planning and Development to engage in this inquiry into the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago by this Joint Select Committee on Finance and Legal Affairs. In the Ministry of Planning and Development, we acknowledge that the ease of doing business of a country is represented on a ranking index published by the World Bank based on individual country performance over 10 specific quantitative indicators. And given today's prevailing economy and the global outlook for the energy sector, the Ministry of Planning and Development also recognizes that it is critical for Trinidad and Tobago to improve its of doing business index, and to do so requires reform of many areas across the wider public service. In its facilitation of government's development priority toward improving the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago, the Ministry of Planning and Development, as the lead body with responsibility for development planning and control, is directly involved in respect of the business indicator dealing with construction permits. Our developed TT system was officially launched to the public on March the 4th, 2020, and has consistently been improving the delivery of service to the public. Additionally, a core function of the Ministry of Planning and Development is the Public Sector Investment Program, the PSIP, which is the capital expenditure component of national budget that supports projects and programs geared towards stimulating the economic growth in accordance with our National Development Strategy, our Vision 2030. The PSIP is therefore a strategic investment plan of the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, which reflects public investment against national priority areas for development. The Ministry of Planning and Development, in support of the National Socio-Economic and Environmental Transformation Agenda, oversees the preparation of the annual and 3-year PSIPs and attempts to align fiscal allocations with the national priorities. More specifically, and in respect of the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago, funding is targeted toward respective ministries and departments and agencies to address the various sub-indices associated with ease of doing business. Notwithstanding the importance to ensure that funding is targeted in the correct areas and that comprehensive monitoring and evaluation of projects is required to achieve success, it is critical for this committee to accept that the process of improving the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago requires a whole of government approach. Therefore, commitment needs to be displayed and individual responsibility needs to be accepted by all relevant stakeholder agencies to implement the required change management strategies if the overall objective is to be achieved. Madam Chair, The Ministry of Planning and Development team looks forward to participating in today's inquiry and commits to attempt to respond to any questions that your committee may have and to make available any written submissions as may be required towards improving the overall ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you. Madam Chair, I think you muted.
Thank you very much. I say I welcome your offer for us to call on you later on. Be careful what you offer, because it may never end. So now we have Mrs. Trudy Gill Conlon. Your opening remarks.
Good morning to all protocols observed. The Port Authority is pleased to be here and is very cognizant of its role in the country and in the economy in terms of being the gateway to trade coming in and out of Trinidad and Tobago, as well as facilitating trade within Trinidad and Tobago in terms of domestic. The Port Authority is a facility, and we are the last stop in the process chain, in the supply chain, and we are the facility that houses the cargo. Our role and our objective in Trinidad and Tobago and internationally is to be able to support our international partners in terms of efficiency and productivity and we also would like to support the local market, the local consignees, importers, exporters, in terms of getting their cargo on and off of the port facility as quickly, efficiently as possible, as well as providing a high level of customer service to our international partners and our domestic partners. The Port Authority is here, and we are committed to being part of the team and part of all the agencies. We are committed to collaborating with all the agencies in order to facilitate trade and the ease of doing business within Trinidad and Tobago and across our borders. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to give a special welcome to the Honorable Minister Clarence Ramgan. I saw him a little while ago. You had me, you're muted. You had me a little worried, sir.
I've been here, Madam Chair. I've been here. Welcome to the teams that are before us. And this is a very important topic, and I'm sure we're going to have some very fruitful discussions.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to remind you that you pass your questions, direct your questions to the chair, and activate the microphone on your devices when you're speaking, when you're acknowledged, and turn it off when you've concluded your contribution. And of course, we all have to be reminded, as you see. Yeah, so that's why I have these two gentlemen here. Keep me in check. So at the end of the hearing, we will have brief closing remarks. So we go straight into the hearing now, and we start with the Ministry of Finance. So we may not direct the question to a particular official. You may determine amongst yourself, unless we say otherwise, who is the best person to respond to the question, yes?
Madam Chair?
Yes?
If it's okay with you, if I could get started with a question.
Certainly, Ms. Lashmidial.
Yes. Question with respect to the what the ministry spoke about. This is with respect to inland revenue. They spoke about the taxpayers register. They needed to have a cleanup of the system. They call it relaunch project to cleanse the taxpayer register. Could we get some more information about this process? When was it previously done? how far it reached and when it was relaunched, and what type of progress and what are the expected outcomes of this exercise?
Ms. Burkett will respond from the Inland Revenue.
Hi, yes, good morning. In relation to the cleansing of the taxpayer database, the objective of doing that is to ensure that the information we currently have consists of at least accurate information on the taxpayers that we do have registered. That is one part of the database cleansing project. The other part would be getting onto the database all taxpayers who are required to be registered. That is where the challenge is for Inland Revenue, in that we need to get information from different organizations and bodies as to persons who are active in business and should be registered.
Does the ministry
in terms of relaunching this?
Yes. I'm not hearing.
No, should I continue?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
You were about to ask a question.
I'll leave my question. So
we didn't hear all of your response.
Okay.
You were saying about the relaunching, you relaunched the exercise?
Right, so we would have relaunched in 2019, I believe it was, in 2019. With the relaunching, that was the setting up of a unit that was, its main responsibility was going through the database and identifying records which may be like duplicate records, inactive records, and making recommendations for ceasing. At this point in time, I will not be able to say what the progress has been on that because I'm not directly involved there and I haven't received that information. But I know it's ongoing.
Okay.
With that. In relation to
So the expected outcome you're saying basically is just a more
accurate database. The expected outcome would be a more accurate database which would show all taxpayers who are required to be registered are registered and the information is accurate and reliable, because there would be indicated on the system as being outstanding. Many times that is not accurate, so it means that taxes that we may be expecting is not really accurately shown.
Okay. Chair, just one follow-up question. I'm sorry, you're breaking up quite a bit. Are you hearing me?
And the balance. Yes, I am.
Okay, you are breaking up quite a bit. I don't know if it's just me or if everyone else is getting the feedback and the breakup. So we're not hearing you clearly.
Yes, I'm also experiencing the same thing. So I'm wondering if it is on Ministry of Finance's side.
Perhaps you can try talking a little slower and see if that will help.
Okay.
Are you speaking? Ms. Lakshmi, you had another question. Perhaps you can ask, and then we see if there's going to be a
Sure.
We can hear.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I wanted to find out with respect to getting people onto the register, whether or not Inland Revenue had something like compliance officers, similar to what NIB would have, that would do site visits, that would examine business activity and determine whether people need to be registered and what type of resourcing they have for those persons. I don't know what they call them, field officers or whatever, but how much resources do you have? Because we keep hearing that there are a lot of people who ought to be registered and paying taxes, conducting activity, business type activity that aren't paying taxes, tax evasion being a huge problem. So I just wanted to find out about the resourcing of your compliance or your field officers or what title you call them by, whether or not you think you have sufficient resources and whether, what type of monitoring you do in terms of monitoring business activity out there.
Ms. Marcel, were you able to hear that question? Because we lost you. We seem to have lost you for a while. Were you able to hear the entire question posed by Ms. Lashmidia?
Ms. Marcial here. Could you repeat, please, Ms. Lashmidia?
I wanted to know if you have something similar to like a compliance unit, like what NIB would have, where they go out and monitor people who ought to be registered, whether you conduct exercises similar to that. I don't know if you all call them field officers or what you call them, but whatever the name is, whether you have that and whether it's sufficient at the moment to capture people who ought to be on the register. Because cleaning up the register and getting rid of duplicates is one aspect, but from the answer given previously, it appears that getting people to be registered so that we don't have a tax evasion problem is a big part of it as well, and having an accurate register. So,
excuse me, that's a question for Ms. Burkett. And we want to know if Ms. Burkett is on.
I'm seeing them, I think.
We've lost her. Where is she?
I think we...
So, Ms. Burkett, were you able to hear while you were off screen?
Sure.
Inland revenue.
Yeah. Yes, I did.
So can you respond then for us?
Yeah, I did. Are you hearing me?
A little broken, but we'll try our best.
Let's see how it goes.
Sorry. Yes, the Inland Revenue Division does have a compliance unit. The activity in terms of going out to the public to ensure that persons who are required to be registered is minimal to none as far as I am aware. The resources, we are very low on resources in terms of manpower, and that is a issue across the division. So that activity, we are facing major challenges with that. We do have a third-party database where we get information that could help us identify taxpayers that are required to register, and we will pursue those. But the actual going out, that has been limited.
Ms. Burkett, with regard to what you just said, do you not have a class of employees called monitors? If so, what do they do?
Yes, we do have a class of employees referred to as monitors, but they have the functions that they perform really does not fall within that. The division has changed the responsibilities of the monitors, and I believe it's in keeping with
There's a change of vision, but when they were hired,
the resource.
Yes, when they were hired, were they not hired to perform exactly that function, to go out there and find people who were not complying and have them comply? Wasn't that the whole rationale for having these monitors brought on board?
Initially, yes, but in terms of the decision to change, to change their responsibility or the nature of their work, I will not be able to answer definitively when and why that occurred.
So, just through you, Chair, what are the current responsibilities that the monitors are carrying out?
Mm-hmm. Many of them are attached to our audit unit. There are some within the compliance unit. What they do specific, again, I will not be able to say this.
All right.
Well, that.
Chair, given the technical difficulties, perhaps we could ask the ministry to follow up with a written response. Just give us some clarification on the allocation of monitors and the current responsibilities being carried out.
I would also want to know.
Chair, I'm seeing a notification coming up on the screen that Ministry of Finance has a low bandwidth, and that might be contributing to the technical problems that we are experiencing.
Yeah, I figured out as much.
Yeah,
so maybe we could send the Secretariat can send them the question if they got it, and Chair, you could add and let them send a written response, because I don't think this is productive.
And also because we're talking about improvement in payment of taxes, I have seen all the initiatives that they've said, but I haven't seen anything about this taxpayer assistance that people have been complaining about, that it is no longer available. To me, if you're serious about paying people paying taxes, that you should make every effort to assist them in this regard. So I want to hear what is happening with the Taxpayer Assistance Program, and why these people hired as monitors and now being asked to do things like audit and so on, which it doesn't make them very happy, because they were hired to do a particular task that is being left undone.
Yeah, we also need to find out what are the projected deliverables, the deadlines to meet the projections, etc. We need to find out when this project started and at what point in time they expect to end. So those are some of the details we need to get from Ministry of Finance, because you would just be getting or going around in circles with no end in sight. So Ministry of Finance need to let us know what are the projected timelines that they are dealing with and whether or not they are complying with those deadlines.
Yeah, Chair, I think when they said they resumed in 2019, but I would also like to know if they're, for example, if they have, now we hear a lot about tax evasion, and I don't know why people beat up on lawyers so much, but we hear lawyers and doctors. But I would also want to know about new types of business activities. I hope Ministry is hearing me, because there's something in particular that I have looked at. For example, when people buy property, large pieces of property, and they develop that property and they subdivide and they sell it off and they're making a profit. And the property is vested in their personal name, so it's a regular transaction. It passes through Inland Revenue Division for stamp duty purposes. But those people pay no taxes on the profits that they make as a result of that activity. If we don't have people who are monitoring this type of activity and getting people like that onto the register, now I don't know that there could be an end date, because these things are really sort of ongoing, but are they setting any sort of targets in terms of increasing the number of persons registered by X amount, some sort of a deliverable? Yeah. We need to understand that. Otherwise, you just, as Minister said, is spinning around top in mud. Because there are always going to be people who may not be registered and ought to be, but we need to understand, I think, are you looking at specific types of business activities? So, as we use the typical example, the lawyers, the cash-intensive type businesses that may not be on it. Are we looking at targeting segments and increasing the number of persons registered by a certain amount, by a certain date? You're muted, Chair.
There are, thank you, some technical glitches with Inland Revenue, really very crucial, with Ministry of Finance, very crucial to the operations, because the ease of business is really very much closely tied in with bringing finance to the country, because you enrich the people, you enrich the country, but so it seems that we will have to move on and deal with it in another way. But we had several questions for Ministry of Finance this morning. So we go to Ministry of Planning and Development. Now, the Ministry of Planning and Development noted in their response that the Ministry of Planning and Development prioritizes areas for development, recommends allocations, coordinates the provision of financial resources and technical assistance to implementing ministries, departments, and agencies. Tell us, how has COVID-19 impacted the ministry's ability to provide technical assistance where necessary to the ministries, departments, and agencies?
Madam Chair, as with everyone else, COVID-19 has affected the Ministry of Planning and Development and our ability to communicate with our several stakeholders. And that more specifically meaning our ability to communicate directly with our stakeholders. However, the PPRD division of the ministry is still able to communicate with its stakeholders in a virtual capacity for the monitoring and evaluation of projects which are being financed under the Public Sector Investment Program.
That's it? Anything else?
Well, unless it's more specific in terms of a particular program, I won't be able to. I'm saying that we are still able to, notwithstanding COVID. COVID is a little more difficult in terms of meeting face to face.
Yes.
It has not entirely shut us down. So we have.
All right. So you're still able to function.
Yes.
To a large extent. Yes.
Yes. At a reduced capacity, but we are still able to function.
Mm-hmm. Any other question, members?
Madam Chair.
Sir, Mr. Scotland.
Through you, the Ministry of Planning and Development. Mm-hmm. Can I ask, because the ministry would appreciate now that they would play a critical role in the post or the softening of the impact, the harsh impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Can I ask what plans does the ministry have in place in terms of an approach, a paper, some sort of document that would tell this country how they intend to deal with that recovery from the ministry itself?
Minister, just for a little clarity, you're asking for the ministry's overall or holistic plan in terms of what it recommends for economic recovery of the country as a result of COVID, if I'm to understand what you've been asked.
Exactly.
Right. Madam Chair and Minister, Ministry of Planning and Development is guided by our National Development Strategy and also is guided by our Roadmap to Recovery document. And we are in continuous communication through our minister in terms of suggestions that the ministry may have towards economic recovery of the country. Of course, today's preparation is specifically with respect to the ease of doing business, and the ministry's contribution towards the ease of doing business is specifically in reference to our dealing with construction permits, and our contribution in that aspect therefore would lead us into a more detailed discussion regarding our particular projects in that manner.
Madam Chair, through you, as a follow-up question, Madam Chair.
Yes, proceed. I recognize you.
Thank you. I've looked at the paper and how the answer relative to the impact of COVID-19, and you have touched on one aspect of it in terms of permits relative to persons wanting to do business in Trinidad and Tobago. You would appreciate, however, that the government will now have to partner with entities, foreign entities, in terms of bringing investment and capital into the country. And in the past, for example, simple things such as work permits, and that is not within your purview, but that is within the purview of the Ministry of National Security. But it will take 3 months, Madam Chair, to get a work permit. And now, I think with the ease of doing business in other countries, much less investment by invitation in Dominica, in Grenada, in other countries, what is the ministry's plans with respect to linking with other ministries like, for example, the Ministry of National Security, the Ministry of Trade? What are the plans from this ministry to have synergies that will help us do business in an easier fashion with respect to foreign investment?
Mr. Scotland and Madam Chair, thank you for your question. In Ministry of Planning and Development, we do recognize, and I think I may have made mention in my opening statement, we do recognize the importance of, toward the ease of doing business, that there are several different stakeholders, as you have identified. There are several stakeholders that are involved, and collectively, we are going to need the cooperation of each and every individual stakeholder if we are to achieve an overall impact on ease of doing business. That being said, the Ministry of Planning and Development has the intention to, we have been discussing it over the past couple months, that in producing a summary report to the Cabinet in terms of our success in respect of our individual contribution regarding the dealing with construction permits, that some gentle recommendations may be made to encourage a top-down approach, to encourage that the different ministries and their minister and their permanent secretaries be all made a little more aware of the need for a partnership amongst the whole of government in order to effect that change, to effect that success of the ease of doing business for Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now, some months ago, I had to participate in the South to South Cooperative, and there was a virtual seminar out of Pakistan, and preparing for that, I got a lot of information from your ministry, and I must say I was surprised to see how much you're doing in penetrating the markets in South America and so on. I want to know if that thrust has now, died down because of the fact that the trade missions and so on that you've been doing, that really amazed me, and it's not out there. If that now is in jeopardy, or you're able to use the virtual platforms to continue penetrating those markets. Because when we're talking about building the economy, and another thing, I don't think there's been enough of advertising in the public arena to the people that, here, these markets are available for you to export your businesses. So what's happening with that? As I say, I was very impressed. So but it's planning and development and
Madam Chair, I apologize, but I'm not certain if that question was addressed to the Ministry of Planning and Development. If it is, then I'm not aware.
All right, so that was trade and in industry.
Chair, through you, could I just pose a question for the Ministry of Planning? We talked about members. Scotland asked about collaborating on the ministries. I want to specifically ask about, you mentioned you needed to standardize processes with the municipal corporations. because when it comes to building permits, completion certificates, the role of the CMOH, and public health, you have differing requirements. Tell us a little more about that process, how it's been going, and have you really had those discussions in order to sort of standardize the system so that people who are applying for these things don't have that challenge as much? And how they develop TT, perhaps Ms. Rathan Singh can tell us how they develop TT platform would help us in that regard.
Thank you, member, for your question. I shall defer this question to Ms. Rathan Singh to give you your response.
Hi, good day, everyone. Thank you for that question. So with regards to our submission, when we said standardization of process, but I need to take it back a little bit about Develop TT. So Develop TT is an automated system that starts with and ends at the municipal corporation and the relevant agencies included. So when we started the project, we noticed that 14 municipal corporations had 14 different ways of processing applications. So when you try to automate this, it turns into chaos into trying to put it into a system. So in the system, we have tried to standardize it. The local government would have created a committee to also standardize their process. But this is one of the issues we would have noted that they still. So in the system, we have one way for cities to operate, one way for boroughs to operate, one for corporations to operate. Of course, you would know they are under various acts, so that would depend on their processes as well. But it's something that needs to be streamlined in order to grant the permits in a faster manner. I hope that answers your question.
Well, not quite, because we understand it needs to be done. What we're asking is how far have we gotten in this process of getting it done?
Correct.
Right. So that will be under the remit of the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. We would have been in talks with them, telling them this is what we noticed from requirements gathering and business process reengineering, that we noticed this is how you can benefit and this is what you need to do.
So don't you all have, I'm sorry, Jayanti.
Go ahead.
Yeah. But just to follow up on your inquiry, Jayanti, I'm really amazed of the response coming from Ministry of Planning on this particular issue, because I know it has been around for some time. I recall, and perhaps you can assist my memory here. I recall that there was a particular piece of amendment to the Town and Country Planning Act where a committee was formed, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but various state agencies were being represented on this particular committee, where the approval process can be facilitated or rather expedited. So can you assist me whether or not I'm correct in my recollection of a piece of amendment that was done to the Town and Country Planning Act, and whether such a committee has been in place since the act was passed?
So you were a little bit broken up, but what I get is that you were saying that Ministry of Planning has a committee, and I think you probably mean the Complex Development Facilitation Committee.
I don't know if it's complex development, but I recall that a piece of amendment was made to the Town and Country Planning Act, which was geared towards standardizing this particular process. And
okay, so that is
a committee, I think, was formed under the Act, and various state agencies like WASA, Ministry of Roads and Transport, Regional Corporation, Town and Country Planning Division, they were all represented on this particular committee so as to expedite the approval process for some of these small developments.
Yeah, I believe that would be under our PAFT Act, which has been partially proclaimed, and the committee, I think, would have been geared towards getting the Act fully proclaimed, but that has not been fully proclaimed as yet.
Well, you see, this is a very serious matter, because I think Ministry of Planning and Development should really be taking the lead role in this, because it's all about not only ease of doing business, but it's all about the development of Trinidad and Tobago, especially some of these construction development. We have an issue in the country where a lot of buildings are illegal. They have not been, they're not compliant with the Town and Country Planning Act. They're not compliant with the Regional Corporation Act, and perhaps it's for the same reason that you referred to earlier on. And therefore, I think Ministry of Planning should be playing a more pivotal role in coordinating all the various state agencies to make the approval process more streamlined and more efficient. I'm not getting that from you. You seem to be saying that, well, we've passed it on to Ministry of Rural Development and we're expecting them to streamline their process. Did you all put a specific timeline as to when they should return to you? Who is leading this particular charge? Because you just simply cannot pass something to rural development and hoping that for the next 10 or 20 years they spinning around in circle and coming to some resolution. There must be a committee that is driving this whole process through with specific deliverables and timelines.
Member Gonzalez, if I may just interject for a couple seconds in respect of your question. The Ministry of Planning and Development fully agrees with your suggestion. We acknowledge that it is extremely important that all stakeholder agencies, including those that will be given or the responsibility will be transferred upon full proclamation of that new legislation, we fully agree that the level of preparedness that is required of those external stakeholder agencies needs to be expedited and needs to be appreciated by them. Of course, I must say that the Ministry of Planning and Development, in our collective discussions with those ministries, we have raised these issues very gently, pointed it out, and we do expect that these ministries would assume their responsibilities, knowing what is to come, and act in their best interest as well as in the interest of Trinidad and Tobago.
Mr. Ali, what I'm saying then is that there should be a committee. I'm suggesting to you rather that if Ministry of Planning and Development is simply relying on the other stakeholder ministries to do what they're supposed to do, then you will not get anywhere fast. I'm suggesting to you that a committee comprising all of the various state agencies be formed and that committee be responsible for driving through the process and making sure that it comes into reality within the shortest time possible.
And again, I agree with you fully, member, and I think it will please you to know that such committee, it already exists, and that work is ongoing at that committee stage, and that communication takes place at that committee level. So we appreciate your suggestion. I'm in agreement with you, and I'm saying that we are working, the Ministry of Planning and Development is working with its partner ministries toward achieving that task.
Who chairs the committee?
The Minister of Planning and Development.
Just for some clarification, please, Chair. I gathered from Ms. Ratan Singh's response that there are some amendments that have to be made to the various pieces of legislation that govern the cities versus the municipalities versus the boroughs. Is that under, or has that recommendation for these legislative, in order to standardize the processes, right? Have these legislative amendments been collated and sent forward by the committee or to the committee? And has the committee considered it and sent it on to Attorney General or anybody like that to drive these amendments forward? Because what I'm hearing, and from my experience, unless the changing of the law is the first step, and then you can get your everything else lined up.
All right, we take note of that and ask that, that we be given documentation so that if it's not there, we're not seeing it immediately at a glance, that we can include that.
Right.
I want to, I want to recognize Minister Rambarat. I think he's somewhere in the wings, and he has a burning question.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just to follow up, but just to add some context and information, I think the reference was to the Planning and Facilitation of Development amendment, which was made in the last Parliament. It was meant to improve the legislation passed in, I believe, 2014.
Yeah, that's correct.
And that has been passed. And in the normal course of things, as Rick knows, in the normal course, it is the public sector in particular that will tell the line minister that there is a level of readiness for full proclamation. But alongside that, Member Gonzalez, I think you were referring to, and I believe Ms. Ratan Singh was involved in it. If P.S. Hines from Planning is here, or Rick, you may know. There was the pilot project. The thing that struck me was on our final meeting with the team doing that preparation for the pilot project. The reference was to about 23 different agencies being involved in the process for the granting of a construction permit, for example. And the automation was meant to remove the paper and allow the agencies to work simultaneously on a single application. And that project was supposed to be piloted in the city of Port of Spain, and I believe after some delays, I believe it is being piloted in the city of Port of Spain, and maybe you can get an update on that. And then the planning and facilitation of development legislation, as that was amended and as we proceeded in working out some of the things that are required to make the automated system work. Parallel to that, we are also doing the local government reform legislation, which was in the last parliament and has been laid and is before JSC, which I chair in this parliament. And the amendments, Member Lakshmi Dayal, is most likely those amendments which are required to first, there's a delegation of authority to the municipalities in the planning and facilitation of development legislation, which is to be proclaimed. There's a delegation of simple developments, the authority for that to the municipal corporation, and that delegation would have to be reflected in the local government reform work and the capacity building that is required. So there are a few things that work together, and maybe both Ms. Ratan Singh and Rick might be able to give us some update on how those things are going, which are with the exception of the local government reform bill, which is before the JSC.
Any further response from Ministry?
Madam Chair, thank you very much again to Member Rambarat, and I would want to agree with almost all of what he has said there. Minister has referred to several pieces of information in his contribution, but as we have referenced, the developed TT application, which has been launched since March 2020, has successfully been implemented by our Town and Country Planning Division in that pilot aspect over two of our geographic regions, namely the city of Port of Spain and environs, and extending all the way to Chaguanas and its geographic limits. And that pilot has allowed the Town and Country Planning Division and our ministry to engage our stakeholders to transition us from a manual paper-based environment into a digital environment. And it has allowed us to interact with our stakeholders to determine all of the shortcomings of the system, and we are addressing them as quickly as they arise. And of course, Ministry will be happy to provide, if the committee so requires, any further details, statistical details, or any other types of details in writing subsequent to the conclusion of the hearing.
So Acting PS, we're still at the pilot stage in Port of Spain and Chaguanas with that automated. Is that the one you call developed TT?
So, member, for the region of Port of Spain and Chaguanas, although we have not, yes, the pilot stage for those two regions has been completed. However, because the system has not been expanded to incorporate the southern extremes of Trinidad and, of course, our Tobago and our eastern segment of Trinidad, we can't make a statement that the system has been fully operationalized.
Right. So that work is still ongoing, right?
Yes.
And that work will give the municipal corporations the capacity to do what is delegated to it under the Planning and Facilitation of Development Act, and also allow all those agencies, TNTEC, WASA, Commission of State Lands, Local Health, Ministry of Health, Town and Country, EMA, will allow all those agencies to interface via that platform. Am I correct?
So currently, not only the Town and Country Planning Division offices are online, we have the Port of Spain Corporation, the Martin Corporation, a part of Sawa Lavantil Corporation, a part of Tunapuna Corporation, Chaguanas Borough Corporation, and Cuba Corporation are all online, and they would have accepted the applications digitally, and they're also processing these applications digitally. So for Develop TT, as of today, we would have received over 1,100 applications for processing. Of course, only those approved applications would go to the municipal corporations. So it still has to go through the building permit stage and the completion permit stage. We have the usual OJs who we have, which will be the fire prevention unit, who also has to do inspections and give approvals. They are also using the system as well. EMA would have received applications. Other agencies would have received applications for advice as well. As you know, sometimes when TCPD receives certain applications, we may need to reach out to IMA, highways, drainage for advice. So that is currently being done in the system as well, all digitally.
Mm-hmm. Right. So there is like a clearinghouse function that resides in Town and Country before Town and Country receives with whatever municipality you're in. The application is made. It comes to a central point. And after you go through it, then it is redistributed to the relevant municipality. Is that how it works?
So once you are approved by Town and Country, you will receive an email notification, you being the applicant, that your application is approved and there's more action for you to do. When you log into your account, you click on your application, you would see more tabs. The more tabs will be your local health authority form, and then you'll be able to upload your additional documents needed at each corporation, for example, your isometrics. Only then the would receive it immediately once TCPD has approved.
Okay, just for the clarity of the public, for simple developments which are to be dealt with by the municipalities, the application is made to the relevant municipality, or it's made to Town and Country?
At this point?
So at this point, the process is still Town and Country.
Your question has been answered, Mr. Member Ramarad?
Yes, and I would add, but the intention is to place that capacity in the municipal corporations so that they could do simple developments from the outset, right?
Of course, most definitely.
Thank you.
Member Lashmidial, you had a question? Or it's been answered?
No, I was moving on to something with Develop TT, as much as Ms. Ragenson was answering. Part of the submission, they noted that there was some unwillingness with respect to agencies and willingness to use the Develop TT to process applications. Maybe they could clarify for us which agencies and what are the, if they've identified the source of this reluctance to use the platform. I know that rolling out technology is never easy, especially, with public service. People are accustomed to the public service. But could you tell us a little bit more about what are some of the agencies you've had a challenge with, and what's the source of that unwillingness, and what initiatives you can either Develop TT or the ministry has adopted to try to address the concerns?
So, of course, but we should also mention that the reluctance was on both parts, of course, on the applicant end and on the approver's end. There will always be resistance to change. It was something new. We also launched it in the middle of the web persons thought that they had no other choice but to submit online. Some of the reluctance just didn't want to register. They thought the registration process was too long, or they just didn't understand it. So what we had to do was, for lack of a better word, hand-holding. So when we call them and explain, or with teams, and we walk them through how to actually submit an application, or even the agencies, we had to do retraining frequent basis to show them how to use the system. Then it kind of made sense to them. This is not so hard, I can use it. But it was just that initial stumbling block. I'm not sure how I see myself in the system. What we also have at the ministry is a team of persons who are assigned liaisons. So we have somebody who would be assigned maybe 4 agencies. They call up that agency every week. Are you all having any problems? Are you all able to process anything? I see that this application, is maybe taking a little while. How can we help? Those sorts of hand-holding going on at the ministry to help those agencies.
Ms. Razan Singh, for example, one of the most horrific experiences I had was having to get onto BizLink in order to do transactions, right? But now that I'm on, it's okay. But I had to go to, an outlet and so on and spend an entire day sorting it out. But do you all have that sort of, they have, for example, for the BizLink, places you can go all over the country. Do you have something like that in place where, for example, if I'm a developer and I am from Siparia or Point Fortin, is there a place in my community that I can go to and get assistance to get onto this thing, or am I going to wait on the phone to talk? I mean, I'm just being very practical here. Am I going to wait on the phone for somebody to pick up the phone and help me walk through this process as a small contractor that I'm buying land, developing, and I need to get permits and so on? Because I know there's so many of people who do that type of work in Trinidad and Tobago who may not be very tech savvy and they may need the assistance. Do you all have that sort of outreach like what they did with BizLink, where you can go to a place in your area and get assistance like that?
So, of course, we have our help desk facility. We have set up on our level 13 a full conference room to help persons. Of course, with COVID, we are limited in what we can physically do. So we kind of have to depend on the phone, emails, and the Microsoft Teams at this point to walk through applicants. What we do for our approvers, and in small batches, we physically visit them when needed. For applicants, if you come into the building, we can actually help you register because TT BizLink and TT Connect, everything can be done online now. You don't have to physically visit a TT Connect center anymore. You can email your registration details and be.
Oh, yeah, well, that's not quite that. That's not quite so. You actually have to still go and stay in the BizLink office and do quite a lot of things. I did it last year. I was forced to do it because of COVID, and I had to do it. So the process still requires someone to come in, just like Inland Revenue and filing your taxes online. You should have to physically bring something in at the end of the day. But anyway, my point is this. You're talking about assistance at the applicant end. The applicant is a government the approver end. The approver is some government agency. So they have people holding their hand on their side and contacting them every week and sort of helping them get on board with using this system. But the citizen who's out there that needs thing, they actually have to either go on a help. And sorry, I don't mean to be but a help desk really is a lot of listening to very bad music in my experience. But it's either a help desk or physically coming to Port of Spain at the moment.
Not necessarily. If you physically come in, we will be able to help you. And that's the only catchment that we have of you, other than we have our phone numbers that you can call. We have our emails that you can call, email us at, and we will contact you like that. Even if you don't contact us directly, we also take calls if it comes from a different floor. Maybe someone calls somebody at Town and Country and say, I'm getting this problem. We contact them immediately.
In your submission, you said that Vision 2030 explores some of the reasons why many of the country's socio-economic indicators, including the ease of doing business, do not reflect better results given government's high expenditure. And the answer resides in the values, attitudes, and behaviors that the people of Trinidad and Tobago either possess or lack. Now, this is across the board. So in answering, I'm sure you'll probably be speaking for other sectors as well. So what's your response? Are there any plans to develop a change management strategy aimed at enhancing this country performance in the ease of doing business? And he smiled. Yes.
Madam Chair, I apologize, but I did not hear the question properly. We had a small glitch in the transmission.
We're quoting from your
repeat?
Yes. Quoting from your submission, Vision 2030 explores some of the reasons why many of the country's socio-economic indicators, including the ease of doing business, do not reflect better results given government's high expenditure. And you said the answer resides in the values, attitudes, and behaviors that the people of Trinidad and Tobago either possess or lack. And I'm asking, are there any plans to develop a change management strategy aimed at enhancing this country's performance in the ease of doing business? How do we change these things, these attitudes? Is there anything going on there?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the question. And what we were alluding to in our response there is, as you all are aware, change is something that is very difficult for the human to accept. And apart from our external stakeholders, our internal stakeholders, our sister and brother ministries and departments, we also have to work towards accepting change and managing change. So the intention of the Ministry of Planning and Development to address this issue that you have raised is during our meetings, especially during the meetings where we are dealing with ministries either on a face-to-face or virtually, as COVID has mandated, in terms of processing their respective projects and programs that they have envisaged for going forward. It is at that opportunity that the ministry would use, that opportunity to discuss with those relevant stakeholders the need and highlight for them the issues that are involved in the overall benefits of their projects.
So is there a way that you hold people to account? You know, if you see the behavior is nothing that is not helping the organization, not helping people to understand that they are there and they are being paid to assist in a process, is there anything that's happening? Or is it that people are left to their own devices to a large extent, and that's how they are? They are public servants. What strategy are you really adopting, except you're just talking?
And again, Chair, thank you for that point. And we do recognize the importance. Of course, that level of micromanagement may have to come from the leadership at the individual stakeholder agencies. However, the Ministry of Planning and Development does commit that it would raise at a management and at a leadership level these important issues with the various stakeholders, the various respective stakeholders for each of those issues.
Mm-hmm. I expect there will be follow-up to make sure that something is happening and you're just not talking in the wind. All right.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I would like to ask, in receiving the report from the ministry, there was a suggestion that there were underperformance of interrelated stakeholders involved in the construction permit process. Madam Chair, you would appreciate, through you, the ministry will appreciate that the construction process and the construction industry may be one of the few driving forces that may help us to cushion the blow of COVID-19. My question is, what measures, madam, have been put in place by the ministry to treat with underperforming agencies to improve their work output, especially in these trying times?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you again, member. And we recognize, just as you have recognized the importance of all agencies to be able to perform and to accept their responsibilities for what needs to be done. Now, the Ministry of Planning and Development, as may have indicated previously, intends to submit through our minister to the cabinet gentle recommendations that would suggest that we would need a top-down approach, that we would need possibly an interministerial committee to drive that I don't want to use the word now, but yeah, that continuous monitoring and more importantly, to drive the effective implementation by the relevant stakeholder agencies in trying to move forward.
Well, thank you very much. Sure, we have many more questions, but we have two other entities to deal with, and I must say, be careful with the gentle recommendation. If it's not working, it's not working. We have to be firm. The time for the gentle recommendations, I think that's past.
You have taken the words directly out of my mouth, Madam Chair.
I tend to do that, Mr. Scotland.
We are obviously operating in a crisis, and the term gentle doesn't suggest in any way that we are operating in a crisis.
All right. So let's thank you very much for your patience with us, and we're very grateful for the contribution that you made. And it may be likely that we may have some follow-up with you. But we want to go to Port Authority, and I see that Finance is back with us. I hope we haven't lost them once again. So let's have Port Authority, and then we will go to Finance to finish with them. So start with Port Authority. Your submission indicated that electronic document interchange was implemented to facilitate the electronic transfer of documents. In relation to the electronic transfer of documents, please clarify what measures have you implemented to ensure customer security and privacy in the electronic transmission of data via the electronic document interchange?
Okay. Good morning to all again. Thank you for that question. The system that we primarily operate with, Navis, Sparks, and for system, that system has been in place since 2012, and it's it's one of the top systems in the world. And within the system, it is built with the security features that the information that is captured electronically is not compromised in any way. We have not had any circumstances, any situations with anything of that nature. So the integrity of the system and the security within the system allows for that.
Thank you. And thank you for a very succinct response. Mr. Gonzalez, you had something? Have we lost him? Okay, we had a second question. Mr. Lashmilia?
Sorry.
All right, sorry. Yes, Port Authority, my questions wanted to find out about the tender. I think you sent us an RFP for the port community system. I just wanted to find out more about that, where it has reached, where the process has reached, any contract awarded for that system, and what kind of time frame you're looking at to implement that system.
Right. The port community system, we did not send out that tender. We are part of the evaluation committee. That was sent out by the Ministry of Trade.
Well, have you received any,
It's being evaluated at this time.
And you are part of that evaluation team, sorry?
I personally am not a part of it, but members of the port are. I could give an update in terms of where they've reached with it, but they're still evaluating.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, Lakshmi. Sorry, Jayanti, I apologize for that.
That's okay. Do you all have a kind of outer limit time frame that you're looking at to complete the evaluations?
This is not driven by the Port Authority. We are sitting on the committee, so I would have to ask the agency that is in charge of this tender evaluation.
And you said that's Ministry of Trade?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that, Chair. I just want to ask the General Manager in reference to page 1 of the submission that indicates that the part submission indicated that the electronic document interchange was implemented to facilitate the electronic transfer of documents. In relation to the electronic transfer of documents, whether or not she can clarify whether or not the part has taken into consideration the issue of privacy from citizens or the citizens' privacy.
We dealt with that question before, didn't we?
No.
If that was the first one.
That was the first one?
I asked. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't get that.
All right, sorry about that.
Can you want me to repeat what was said?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
I have a question that touches and concerns both the Port Authority and the customs to come.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there has been, we know that there's a pandemic, but there's a backlog at the port and a backlog of clearing of goods. And it's a real issue for users. It's now an issue for consumers. What is being done? But we've been doing this, March will make it 1 year. So we know what we are involved in. What is being done by the port? What is being done by customs to clear that backlog and to make business easier during this time so that goods don't take up to 3-4 months to clear, particularly medication and critical goods? That is my respectful question. That's the only question I have.
Right. That question I will answer, but customs will also have to provide a response. So the Port Authority is a facility, right? Where a terminal facility and cargo is housed on the port. Only when your documentation and your approvals are given by the various agencies, not the port, prior to collecting your cargo, then you are facilitated to come onto the port. So the process is all your approvals and all your clearances, as you say, have to take place prior to trucker being able to come onto the port or a consignee being able to come onto the port to collect their cargo. So the Port Authority is not involved in the clearance part of it. What we are involved in is once you come into the port to pay whatever handling fees to collect your cargo, then we facilitate that. And the Port Authority is open from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. The gates are open Monday to Friday. Vessels call here 24/7. So we're a 24/7 operation. We have an appointment system, and the appointment system basically will facilitate, once you are able to collect your cargo in terms of containerized cargo, we can facilitate you. There's no limitation in terms of the number of trucks. We do about 200. And just COVID took place, the port didn't shut down because we're an essential service. So we continued operating, and we, the first couple, the lockdown period, obviously there was less movement of cargo, less movement of people coming in and out. However, that has pretty much normalized to some extent in terms of the deliveries that we do a day. But on average, we would do about 200 imports a day. It would have reduced slightly. I can get those figures to you all, but the facilitation of cargo, again, customs would have to answer here in terms of how COVID has impacted the delays that you're speaking of or the clearances.
Madam Chair, can I ask a follow-up question? I just want to ask the General Manager, and just to support what Member Scotland indicated. Now, the people in the country, as far as they are concerned, there are delays on the port. And I totally understand what you're saying by, customs having their part to play and the other agencies having their part to play. But as far as people are concerned, there's a delay on the port. Is the port doing anything by working with the stakeholder agencies to make sure that systems are streamlined so as to prevent the delays that citizens often complain about with respect to cargo on the port?
Yes, the port works with all the agencies, and Customs and Excise being one of the major agencies. And if there is an issue or if something occurs and there is some sort of backlog we are seeing happening, or if the customers are complaining to us, so if the brokers, the truckers, are complaining to us, we would bring it to the attention of the agencies that are involved, and we work together to try and facilitate whatever has to be done to clear up any backlogs.
But in terms of a digital platform, do you all have a single digital platform where you all operate together?
Right. No, that is in so the port community system single electronic window, as well as the single electronic window will facilitate that. At this time, we're working with Customs to have our NAVIS system integrated with ASICUDA, so that when a broker or the consignee goes to Customs to do their customs clearances, once Customs releases the cargo, then our system will get an automatic message showing that release. As it stands right now, the broker, when they get their documentation and their approvals from Customs, they come to the port with their release order, physical release order, and we release it in our system, because we have to do a port release once Customs releases it. But we are working with Customs to have that done electronically.
When you compare your system with, for example, Barbados, Bahamas, or Jamaica, these are ports that, based on the reports that we've received, they have gone through some major transformation compared to what we are doing in Trinidad and Tobago. How have you benchmarked your operations with some of these ports in the Caribbean, so that you can understand what are some of the transformation that you would have to go through to make your system a little bit more modern?
All right. So I would have said in the opening, when I guess you probably didn't hear, NAVIS, the system, that our terminal operating system is our port system that is used to manage our vessels that are calling here, international shipping lines, international vessels, where everything is done electronically in terms of sharing of information, their manifest, their discharge, their load. Our terminal is more or less automated, because we have handheld RF. So containers that come off, go on, everything is done electronically through the system. So there's no paper in the terminal itself. Even when truckers come to our gate, prior to coming to the gate, the broker goes into our system after they've paid and they've been processed, and they assign the container to the trucking company. The trucker goes on electronically, makes their appointment to collect their cargo. So NAVIS, our NAVIS system, if you look, and it's used internationally, not just regionally. So that is a worldwide state-of-the-art system. When we speaking about trade as a whole, and we're looking at ourselves ranking as 105 out of 150, and we're looking at the entire logistics chain, I think that is where the issue is, in terms of our connectivity of all the systems across all the agencies, so that currently if a customer takes, say, 9 days to process documentation prior to being able to come to the port, that if you compare it, benchmark it to other regional partners and international, that can take 24 hours. And so it's the other agencies in the supply chain where, we may fall short. And the single electronic window, it is my understanding that is supposed to improve or close that gap.
Okay.
Chair, through you, just one question, well, a couple of questions actually for coming out of this from Member Gonzalez's questions. The cohesion between the port and customs to get on the ASICUDA, is that what you call it, and NAVIS?
Yes.
You have a time frame in mind, again, an endpoint for this that you all are looking at?
No, we don't have a timeline per se as to when it will happen. We started working on it a little while ago, so I don't know if the comptroller could advise in terms of how fast we can move along with it, but it is being worked on. We I don't have a deadline date.
Okay. See, I find that this tends to be the recurring answer we hear a lot. We're working on this thing a while and we really don't know how soon. So if you all could perhaps follow up and maybe give us some information about some timelines that we could look at. Anyway, coming off of that too, and the Asikuda system, and again, I'm trying to be practical here. We hear a lot about the systems at the port breaking down. Could you tell us a little bit more about backups? What happens when sometimes systems go down? Do you all have, for example, systems in place to quickly remedy a situation when you're because these are, as you said, world-class systems, but even world-class systems and technology, you have hiccups along the way, and it can seriously impact upon the business that people have to do at the port. Can you tell us a little more about how, what systems you have in place to address breakdowns and so on, and how quickly you can turn these things around?
All right. In terms of, and I'll go with this statement, you said we hear frequently of systems breakdown. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking you. I don't want to go on
I'm not sure where that data or information is coming from, but the system itself, I mean, yes, you will have glitches at times and things will happen. For the year, you might have, 3 occasions it may happen for whatever reason. And generally speaking, if Navis goes down for any reason, obviously we have a team assigned to getting it back up and running, as well as have the support, the international support with the system. But when it does go down, in the interim until we can, fix whatever the issue is, yes, we have manual procedures that will kick in. Sometimes it may not be, depending on what the issue is, we may halt the operation for a period of time, because it's difficult when you have a electronic system, and if you move to the manual, the paper-based, and you start recording things on paper, and then you have to put it into the system. So sometimes it makes sense, if we know the problem can be resolved within, say, an hour or so, we may halt the operation. In terms of trucks coming in, we will let them come in, and we will ask them to wait until we can go back up on the system, or we will just revert to the manual system if we know it's going to take longer to fix the issue, and then enter the data after into the system to update it.
Do you have any data in terms of, you said that it's probably not accurate to say that the system breaks down all the time, but if you have breakdowns, do you have any data as to how long is the turnaround time before you can get the system back up and running? Like, let's say for the year 2020, how many breakdowns have occurred? Well, 2020 was a kind of odd year, but maybe 2019.
I'll have to get that data for you, because depending on the problem, it would have a different time frame.
So perhaps you can let us know, like, for example, 2020 COVID kind of messed everything up, but 2019, how many breakdowns you had, and how many times you had to revert to the manual system, and how long it took before the system was back up and running. That would be really helpful.
No problem.
All right. Thank you very, very much. Unless there is at least one more burning question, we'll move back to Ministry of Finance. Yes?
Chair, sorry, just one more question for Port Authority with respect to, they mentioned the modernization of equipment as being a key factor to assist with your efficiency. Could you give us any updates with respect to acquiring modern equipment? I hear, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, people always talk about the age of the cranes and so on the ports, and that being an issue. Is that in fact so? And do you need, or have you embarked upon a process of modernizing and updating the equipment that's available on the ports?
Sorry, my bandwidth was low at the start of your question, so I didn't hear the first part of it.
I said that we often hear, again, that one of the challenges that the port has is the age of the equipment. For example, people have identified cranes, for example, that are on the ports. Could you tell us whether or not you have embarked upon the process, if that is in fact so, and if you have embarked upon the process of modernizing your equipment and where that process has reached?
Right. That is in fact so. Half of the equipment or more is past its economic life. So the age of the equipment is beyond economic life. However, we still use the equipment. We actually in the process of receiving a new crane. So we would have ordered, we got PSIP funding for a ship-to-shore crane to replace one of the 44-year-old cranes. And that will be implemented very shortly. The crane is actually on its way here to be put together. In terms of other pieces of equipment, again, we would have gotten some PSIP for this fiscal, 8.5 million. And so we send out tenders to get smaller pieces of equipment, backup equipment.
Like, give us an example. What type of equipment would that be?
Like empty container handlers. And Robert is here with me. The CEO of the cargo handling. He can give you the specifics on the equipment.
Yeah, thanks.
As presently as you can, because we must finish at 12:30 because there's a sitting of the House.
Oh, yes.
Not like the last time when we were free.
We're currently sending out tenders for ECHs and reach stacker. We do have in mind to do some tractor trucks later on. But generally, yes, the thing is the capital equipment, we have to get the funding over the PSIP, and we have been getting approval for the acquisition of this equipment. So right now on the burner is the new ship-to-shore crane, which is due at the end of February, and it would be in operation by May. And we do have tenders going out for 2 empty container handlers and 1 reach stacker.
So we go back to Ministry of Finance. I think their house is in order now, and I hope that the technical glitches does not signify what is going to be happening when people try to pay their taxes online. Yeah, so thank you. We welcome you back. Ministry of Finance, do you have any questions for them? There were a few outstanding.
Chair, I would like to find out more about the online. I can't recall if we touched on this, the online banking system. They mentioned that it had been done with customs in the opening statement. I think that they meant I think it was the PS or Deputy PS mentioned that customs had implemented this system. So they indicated in the submission that they wanted to move ahead with an online banking payment system for the payment of taxes. That some approvals were needed from Treasury. Could you give us an update on that and where you've reached?
Good afternoon. Thanks for the question, and I'll ask Ms. Marcel to provide a response. Comptroller of Customs.
Good afternoon.
Yes, please. We're listening.
Thank you very much. At present, we are liaising with the Treasury Division, and they are advising us on the best way forward for the online banking system. It has not been implemented as yet. However, the upgraded Asikuda system, which is the system used by the Customs Division, is configured to receive online payment.
Yeah.
But there
sorry, I think you misunderstood the question. My question was, you mentioned that they had the approval and couldn't do it. My question was about Inland Revenue doing it, not Customs.
Sorry.
I understand from your opening statement, you said Customs had made some progress, but I wanted to find out more about Inland Revenue actually doing it.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. It was directed, it was referred to you. But PS, if you could just tell me what Inland Revenue now following suit to be able to receive.
Yes, I didn't misread your question, so I'll ask our representative from the Inland Revenue to provide a response.
Yes. Madam Chair?
Yes, please proceed.
As it stands right now, what I have been advised is that Inland Revenue has done its due diligence in terms of the resources that's necessary for online banking. They have already liaised with the banks. The banks are waiting and ready to move ahead with us for online banking, but we need the required cabinet approval. And as far as I understand, this has to go through the Treasury Division in order for us to move ahead with that. And that is where we at now. I believe a draft cabinet note has been completed and submitted to Treasury for review and approval. But we are ready and waiting.
Thank you. Now, you spoke about the non-intrusive inspection equipment available at custom, very old and outdated, insufficient in quantity. What is the current and required capacity of the customs to conduct effective cargo scanning at the ports in Port of Spain and Point Lisas? I'm not hearing you.
Thank you for the question, Chair. When you say capacity, are we talking about human resources or the physical capacity of the scanners?
Tell me about both now.
Okay, so...
you need human beings to move, to conduct.
Well, the scanners are very expensive. A scanner is about $14 million per scanner. So right now, we are not in a position to purchase any scanners. We have scanners on the port that belongs to the port, but it is an old scanner. It is functioning, but it is old. We need, in order for us to do any sort of scanning in the proper manner, we need updated equipment with new technology. In terms of our human resources, right now we are at a capacity of 60% of our staff. We have done training. Training was initiated for persons to operate the scanner. But these, ever so often, they are rotated. So we need ongoing training for our staff.
I am sure the Minister of Finance is listening to your cries. And maybe something will happen. Mr. Scotland, I recognize your hand.
Chairman, I have two questions. It's the same question that I've asked the Port Authority. Customs, there is and maybe I am getting it wrong, but the complaints that I receive from business persons, especially since March 2020, is that there is a backlog and a backup and a slowness of getting goods cleared. Sometimes it may be essential items. What is customs doing along with the other stakeholders? I've only asked for here the Port Authority. What is customs doing to clear that backlog and to ease that process so that we do business in a more efficient way? That's the first question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that question. At present, there are no backlog of containerized cargo at the port. However, the non-commercial cargo, that is done on an appointment system by the port. So the port, I cannot speak for Ms. Conlon, but they have an appointment system, and that is the system that the customs will work with on how much people they will attend to for a day. As it relates to emergency cargo, we have in place put officers round the clock to attend to all emergency cargo that comes in at the airport.
Chairman, I don't wish, well, Chairman, maybe then we are getting something wrong, because that has not been my experience and my, well, relative to the instructions given, but I have no reason to doubt the acting controller or the Port Authority, from what they have said, Chairman, there's no backlog.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Mr. Scotland, there is a backlog, and there was a backlog at the Shed 10 barrel shop. That is where the backlogs are occurring. This is where we serve the public, and we have to entertain the public. Due to COVID distancing measures, we were forced to implement an appointment system. Initially, we were doing 40. We moved up to 70 customers a day and then to 100. We implemented overtime measures during the week where we worked 4 days until 7 o'clock and on Saturday in order to try and handle the backlog. The appointments are done in conjunction with the customs who are there at the port. They dictate to us. Yesterday, we had a meeting with customs, and they are also citing that they have security concerns which would require heightened inspections. And they are asking us to go down to 40 barrels, 40 customers a day. An average container has 100 customers' goods inside. Over the period November to January, we handled over 133 containers. So that would be 1,300 customers that we have to handle, each customer sometimes having multiple packages to go through. And that is where the backlog is in trying to meet the COVID protocol and the customs requirement to do the 100% inspection. We are working with customs. As I said, we met with customs up to yesterday. I met with the OC there, and we are trying to find out how we can improve that throughput while meeting their security requirement.
I don't want any, Madam Chair, through you always.
Yes, sir.
I don't want anyone to get on the defensive, but I want to ask these questions. We have been doing this since March 2020. Is it an issue of resources? It is an issue of will? Is it an issue of innovativeness? Why can't we solve this within a shorter period?
Mr. Scotland, as the comptroller just mentioned, they are operating at 60%. Most of the times that we request additional customs officers, they are unable to supply. And that is one of the main reasons we weren't able to have the throughput we desired.
I have a short question. And I know I shouldn't ask that because one should not look a gift horse in the mouth. But out of curiosity, how did it come about that when COVID, that there was a time when you could not calculate taxes at all? And people were being allowed to pick up their goods with no taxes being paid. How did that arise? Controller?
Madam Chair, I don't know of what you speak. Taxes
you don't know of what I speak?
Mm-hmm. Taxes are levied on, if you are speaking of non-commercial, taxes are levied upon examination. Right? But the only time you get free, you come and you take your goods is if there is a concession that you are granted by the government for a particular good.
I'm speaking to a situation when people in a FedEx office went to collect their packages and they were being told, you're asking how much do you have to pay? And you're being told they didn't give custom and calculate no taxes and go with your goods. You don't know of that?
Well, I will have to find out about that one. I will really have to find out about that.
All right.
Because
so maybe you can respond in writing. Thank you very much. I'm afraid that, yes?
Madam Chair, the second question that I asked, and it's a very short question directed to the acting controller. Madam Chair, you and several members on this committee would know that part of the ease of doing business is security of tenure and people being in positions that are secured. It did not escape me that the head of customs now is the acting controller. I've heard it time in another incarnation where there's the acting and not someone appointed in the substantive post. Why is this such a perennial problem?
Madam Chair, if I may, Mr. Scotland, the appointed controller is presently on vacation leave for 3 months. I am acting for the appointed controller for 3 months. But positions there are positions, the Service Commission have promoted people recently.
Understood.
Right, December 2020, we have gotten promotions and the posts are being filled.
Excellent.
A question from the public. Given the number of ministries and agencies responsible for the country's ease of doing business ranking, is there an inter-ministerial committee to drive this process? Is it planning and development? Do I hear you respond?
Madam Chair, thank you very much for the question. The short answer to the question is no, there is not an inter-ministerial committee as at this time, but that is what I've been hinting to. I don't want to use the word gentle, but that is what I've been hinting to in my responses before, in that is a recommendation that the Ministry of Planning and Development intends to make in the very near future.
But you know, hinting doesn't work in this country.
I apologize.
You have to come out and say boldly what you want, otherwise you don't get it. And you have to say it not once, twice, thrice. Right.
Chair, I know we're out of time and my colleagues have to attend a sitting of the House. Can I just ask the representative from Inland Revenue if they could provide us in writing with some information about enforcement with respect to the collection of taxes, both administrative sanctions and criminal. I know they have the CTIU. And we also, I think there was an amendment to Section 4 of the Income Tax Act that allows them to do information sharing, whether or not they have done so. And they have started doing that information sharing, and whether or not criminal charges have been actually brought and how many have been brought against persons for tax evasion, and how it has helped the tax collection drive that they are on. That's a long answer, so perhaps in writing they can send it to us, please.
As far as Inland Revenue is concerned, is there a proposal or is there a system where officials at Inland Revenue, a procedure or anything for reporting, and to whom, if such a report has been made, that you've been offered a bribe? A member of staff is being offered a bribe, and it's been offered to someone of integrity, and that person takes great exception to being offered a bribe. What can that person do? And would it be welcome if they do what I think they should do?
Within the operations of Inland Revenue, I am not aware of any mechanism that we as employees can make an official complaint or representation of a bribe.
You're breaking up at a crucial moment, man.
Outside of going to your direct commissioner. Other than make anonymous complaint, if you wish, back through the compliance unit to the TTIU and lodge a complaint or a notice that this has happened. But I don't know that it is the actual practice that takes place.
So you don't know, you've never had any reports coming to you that some person has offered a bribe to facilitate a process to defer, certain action being taken, some audit not happening?
I am not aware of any official representation in me.
You're not aware of any
official mechanism for that to take place.
Sorry?
Outside of an officer for that to take place, I'm not aware that there is an official mechanism in place for that. Outside of the officer going directly to their commissioner or line supervisor and making that representation or that complaint that this has happened.
If there is a conflict of interest between the officer's duties and the officer's private business, what do you do? You are aware that there are some officials who may be working inland revenue and they may be doing, or a close member of the family may be engaged in some activity that conflicts with the operations of the authority. So what happens? You've had those instances, haven't you?
I am not aware. I can only speak to what I've heard, but at the board level, they may be more aware. Yeah, they may be more aware of that and what they are doing, but I cannot speak to what takes place. But we have heard.
You have heard. So have I. Are you satisfied that the members of the staff of the Inland Revenue are happy in their employment? Do you have situations where, because you see, people are going to be performing well when they are happy where they work? And are you aware that, there may be staff members who haven't received increments for years? Is that an annual thing that happens, getting increments?
That is, as far as I'm aware, a normal situation throughout the public service and in the front. Promotions are long in coming, approvals for acting and allowances long in coming. Mm-hmm. So yes, that makes persons very unhappy to come to work to perform at their best when in their personal lives, this may be an issue because of not receiving their due salaries and allowances. So I would say that is a situation across the public service.
Mm-hmm. Are you satisfied that the internal processes that you can discipline employees, under your command, within the, somebody who is habitually late coming to work, things like that? Do you feel that, within the organization, those things are being properly handled? Because they're not to be talking all the time about the culture of an organization and trying to change the culture of the organization and trying to change, since Gordon Draper days, what's been happening in the public service. Do you see that you can do anything, or do you feel helpless in the situation? With people always in dereliction of duty in an important arm of the ministry like that?
Well, based on the regulations that do exist, there are actions that can be taken by supervisors and managers. However, the entire process is a long, drawn process. And so disciplining is very tedious and not really very effective, because there is no real consequence. And then new persons coming into supervisory positions may not be aware of the actions that they can take as supervisors and managers. These things have limited impact on staff behavior and discipline. Because I know the board has attempted to send out reminders of ethic behavior and working hours and all the rest that we are supposed to be adhering to, but it really hasn't made a real impact. And if managers don't follow the regulations as required, then at the end of the day, the staff is more has more advantage because you didn't do what you were required to do based on the regulations. So it is that is what it is.
Madam Chair.
Hi, Madam Chair.
As an administrator, I know your job is not an easy one. It's very difficult to change the culture, but unless we have people doing what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, and how they're supposed to do it, then Trinidad is not going to move forward very much, And it's just and those who are doing well, we have to find a system of reward for them, because there are many good workers, but you have many who should be somewhere else. So I wish all of you well in your endeavor and your willingness to serve Trinidad and Tobago as a public servant. And unless we get it right, I'm afraid, that we're just not going to be any higher on the ease of doing business index. You must have proper employees. So let's have our brief closing remarks before I let you go for what I'm sure will not be a virtual lunch. You've worked very hard and you deserve the best. So let's have the team lead, just say a few words and we let you.
Madam Chair, MP Scotland and myself, we have sitting in a very short while.
Yes.
Is it possible that we can be excused at this point?
Yes, I will certainly do so. I understand. You are about the people's business.
I thank you very much.
Always sorry to see you go, but we'll take and you'll catch it later on television, the remarks that you missed.
I thank you very much for your understanding, Madam Chair. And I want to thank all the ministries that have been represented and to thank all members of the committee for this very insightful morning and deliberations.
Madam Chair, can I take it that I'm relieved also?
I didn't say that.
I am seeking your leave, please, Madam Chair. I must be elsewhere in a short while.
You always like the piggyback, but go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. Good
Thank you, Madam.
So just have the closing remarks, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon again.
Ministry of Finance is very pleased to be a part of the session. We recognize that there's a lot of work to be done, and we give our commitment to assist as a major stakeholder in the ease of doing business. Also, Madam Chair, there's one comment I'd like to make with respect to your second to last question, so if I may. And it has to do with the staffing at the various divisions of the Ministry of Finance. We recognize that, and we have taken a very active role in changing how we treat with our human resources, and we hope that the effects will be seen shortly in terms of having employees where they're supposed to be. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Mr. Ali? Sorry.
Sure. Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair, to you and your esteemed panel for the opportunity to participate in today's inquiry. I hope that the Ministry of Planning's contribution has assisted in the identification of critical issues and potential solutions toward improving the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, the Ministry of Planning and Development, we commit to continuing our effort to promoting and ensuring that the approach adopted is a whole of government approach. And just very briefly, for the benefit of member Lakshmi Dial, I would like to inform her that the TT Connect and the TT BizLink in 2021 have allowed the members of the public to do their registration totally online without having to go to the, notwithstanding your experience, but in 2021 they have upgraded. And that what that means is that the Town and Country Planning Division, when responding to our public stakeholders, we do offer that help desk facility to assist our public members in registration through the TT BizLink and the TT Connect in order to facilitate them access to develop TT. So again, to the committee, thank you very much and have a pleasant afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Mrs. Trudy Gill-Conlon.
Okay, thank you for all the questions, all the healthy discussion. The Port Authority will continue to do what we can within our remit to ensure that we provide the level of customer service and efficiency to our stakeholders. And we are also willing and ready to work with all stakeholders to ensure that there is a seamless ease of doing business from start to finish throughout the entire logistics chain. And so we thank you once again for inviting us and have a great day.
So we thank you, all the officials, for your free and frank discussion. You have assisted us tremendously. I must thank my committee members, those in their apps, those present still, and those in absentia who have been here and who have assisted in this virtual hearing. I thank the staff for their tremendous support before, during, and even after the meeting. And I thank the viewing and listening audience. It has been a very enlightening morning, and it's not over till it's over. So you may be hearing from us because there are still questions. And have a good day. Enjoy your lunch. And we'll see you some other time, either in writing or in person, virtually, or virtually. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, everyone, for the participation and for the assistance. And Mr. Ali, I certainly hope that, well, I'm glad to hear. And what you all need to do now.
Muted again.
Oh, right.
Yes.
You all need to get a TT Connect office in San Fernando, so San Fernandians don't have to go to Princestown. That's my only other complaint that I'll have about TT Connect. But thank you, everyone.
Remember your oath, nothing personal. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. And enjoy